Hello, everybody. We are back. It's Lower League Lingo. It's episode 31. We're back onto Tier 5. If you were anywhere near Twitter, you'd realise we've got 3 that have joined the relegation waiting room. We've got 2 that have been given brand new champion status and only one place where you can find out all about it. That's right here on the other side of this. Yes, hello, good evening, welcome. Lovely to have you with us on this fine summer's evening, it feels like. But it was very windy today. I nearly got blown into the road on numerous occasions on my way back from taking the car to its MOT. And speaking of MOTs, how are you guys feeling? Are you all bang on at the moment, or could you do with a service? John and Gareth, how are you getting on?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Unfortunately, I'm not having a week off like yourself, Barry, but lots of things to look forward to that always gives me a bit of energy.
Yeah, probably a few advisories on mine, but all in all, good to go. Pass happily, yeah.
Well, as long as it's only an advisory, that's fine. You haven't got to do anything about that. But there we go. That's another story for another time. Let's get straight into it because there's 8 leagues to cover, as you well know, and we are going to do our very best to get through them. So let's throw them straight up here. It's one that we won't be surprised to see. We already knew a fair amount about this little group, insofar as the fact that Wythenshawe, God bless them, won this one a long time ago, but still some very interesting stuff going on down the bottom there, Gareth, where it looks like, well, it's not looking like it is going to go down to the final day.
Yes, apologies if you can hear whatever is going on outside. That's unbelievable. I really don't know what it is, but I can't see. Yes, the relegation looks like it's going to come down to, well, it is going to come down to the final week of the season. Salford will travel to Mancunian Unity, knowing that they need a win for them to stay up. Looking at the table, it may seem like Unity are probably strong favourites for that, and I would probably agree, to be fair. What I would say is that Unity have 2 cup finals coming up. They are in both the Manchester FA County Cup final and the League Cup final as well, playing Bury in the League Cup final and Accrington in the Bury in the Manchester County Cup final and Accrington in the League Cup final. So they start midweek the week after this this game against Salford. So it depends how Unity want to approach that game. Do they want to risk anyone picking up a niggle in advance of those 2 hugely important games? I would suggest that even the rotated Unity side is probably good enough to get this job done. But I think, yeah, there's plenty of other kind of stories and stuff in this league as well. Not a huge amount to go, but Wythenshawe the season away to Fleetwood Town Wrens on the 27th. The interesting thing with that is it's going to be played at Highbury. No, for those of us that are old enough, not North London. Fleetwood's men's ground is Highbury as well. So we'll be travelling up there, and that'll be a nice way to round out the season. But I think what's also interesting, just to go back to Mancunian Unity a little bit, is for so long we kind of thought that they'll finish second, they'll be pretty comfortably finish second. They've got 2 games left in it, and if they need to win both of them to do that, I definitely expect them to get at least 1 win. But dropping points against Crewe, for example, shows that they're not infallible. They've dropped points 9 times this season, as many times as they've won games. So I think there's a lot still to be decided here. Maybe not towards the top, but there's definitely 1 game left at the bottom of the league. A big occasion for Fleetwood in the men's stadium. They're going to want to go and get that win. And Unity looking for second place in the league, looking to try and wrap that up with their 2 wins as well. So the main headline of the champions is decided, but plenty still to play for.
Yeah, quite a bit to be fair, like you're saying. The whole Salford thing, like they've played a couple of games, they've lost them both, and they were probably the ones where they had the best opportunities in terms of Fleetwood and Crewe. So they've had their chances to jump up over FC United there, but just haven't taken them. So yeah, interesting stuff going on over there. And of course, Crewe, interesting one there that was, wasn't it, with Crewe jumping up over West Didsbury, because poor old West Didsbury got a draw against Bury, didn't they? And that should have been enough to keep them in 8th. And they had a point deducted for an ineligible player, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. We kind of had heard that was likely to happen when we played them a few weeks ago. There was kind of rumblings of that. But yeah, I think what's really interesting about this league this year is if you look at that, you've got Darwin, Curzon-Ashton, Tranmere, Fleetwood, West Didsbury, FC United, who have all had points deducted in the league. Wythenshawe and Bury both got expelled from cup competitions for fielding ineligible players. And yeah, so that's 8 teams over the course of the season that have had a penalty of some kind. I think, yeah, there's definitely discussions to be had around this. I think for me, just one thing to touch on with this is it's really tricky to be able to tell if people don't update full time properly. It can be really tricky to tell and see whether people are cup tied. So we kind of come back to that discussion around full time all the time. You know how it's easy for us, but it's easy for secretaries as well. For them to be able to go, is this person cup tied? Yeah, it's there on full time, and it just makes life tricky. I mean, everyone knows the rules at the start of the season. Everyone knows player eligibility rules. I think it's just something that as the game gets more and more professional, then we should hopefully start to see these things kind of peter out. But I think when an organisation is made up more or less completely of volunteers, mistakes happen. I just think it's unusual that there's been so many of them.
No, I agree. Maybe it just needs tightening up somewhere. Not entirely sure how we do that, but certainly something to look at as we move forward. So let's look very quickly at the Southwest Premier, where we have our AFC St Austell, who were already down. There was no particular surprise when we looked at that. We already knew that was the case, but there is still plenty to talk about with regards to this table, because as you look at the Southwest, Marine Academy Plymouth, 8 points clear with 1 game to go. You would be forgiven for thinking that they are going to run away with the championship, but both Torquay and to a lesser degree Sherborne are all sat there very much involved in this conversation. Sherborne mainly because they get involved in the matches, but Torquay specifically because they very much have the opportunity to take over Marine. 4 games left for Torquay. They can make it to 52 points. Marine Academy are in a bit of a situation because they require 5 points, but from 1 match. And that, as we all know, is a mathematical impossibility. So, as a result, Torquay very much in with a shout of winning this one. But how will they get there? Well, we will have to wait and see. But the big ones they've got coming up, there's nothing really happening over the weekend in terms of league matches. But on the 27th, Torquay will face Forest Green Rovers. And I mean, you'd fancy them probably to get the win, but Forest Green Rovers there in 4th, only 5 points behind, could very much throw a spanner in the works. Of course, if they do so, that will become a bit of an issue. However, Torquay if they do manage to get the win, will go to 43, obviously. And then on the 4th of May, in the first of their 3 remaining games, Torquay will travel away to Marine for Marine's last game of the season. And of course, if Torquay have managed to beat Forest Green Rovers and then they go on to beat Marine as well, you don't need to be a mathematical genius to realise they'll be on 46 points, needing just 1 win from their remaining 2 games. So you would expect them to do it, to be honest with you, because I'm pretty sure their last 2 games are Bishop Lydiard and AFC St Austell. So in the nicest possible way, you would imagine 3 points incoming in that respect for Torquay. So they could still just about get there, but they are going to have to beat Forest Green Rovers first. And then looking at the bottom, you've got Poole Town, who are not out of it as yet, with Bishop's Lydiard at the bottom. And again, it's one of those tricky mathematical conundrums for them, because Bishop's Lydiard have got 3 games left and therefore can get to 17 points. Poole Town have got 1 game left and can get to 17 points, which means, of course, that Pucklechurch are also stuck in there as well, due to the fact that they were doing all right. And then they had 6 points deducted for non-fulfillment to all in one go, which has obviously dragged them straight back into a bit of a rubbish position for them, really. They might end up dropping down a position. So what can we say about Poole Town and Bishop Lydiard? Well, I'll tell you what we can say, because the very next game for them, which is, of course, Poole Town's last game, is against Bishop Lydiard. So it's very, very simple. If Poole can go out there and get the win against Bishop Lydiard, they will stay up. If they draw, it'll very much be down to Bishop Lydiard's last 2 games and whether or not they can win them by a big distance. But of course, the fact that they've got to go and play Torquay will not make it very easy for them. So it seems reasonable to assume that it will be Bishop Lydiard that goes down. The big thing will be, can Torquay take the title? And I think they certainly can. The fixtures are there, but it will all come down to that match on the 27th of April when Torquay face Forest Green. So Forest Green can have a massive say. And I would imagine that all of Marine Academy Plymouth will be Forest Green Rovers fans for the day. And then what a moment that will be when Marine have to play Torquay. So that's the South West Premier, looking very, very, very interesting at the moment. But over here in the East Midlands, John, goodness me, we've got our first new champions to talk about. Sheffield FC have won the league. And of course, relegation has now been confirmed for all 3 of the teams. Anstey Nomads were very much in with a hope, even though they didn't have a game left to play. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more as to how it is that Anstey Nomads have gone down and Sir Jim Ratcliffe Worksop have stayed up.
There's only 2 games, Barry, over the weekend in this league, and it's just confirmed absolutely everything, hasn't it? So Sheffield FC women 1, Chesterfield ladies 0. That was first against second. So Chesterfield losing that game means that they can't catch Sheffield FC 8 points behind with only 2 games to go. And Sheffield FC women got relegated last season into this league and bounced back within the first season, which is great to see, because we've seen, across the pyramid this year, that teams get relegated and they're not even in contention to get promoted and potentially get relegated again. So it's great to see that Sheffield FC women have adapted to that league and readjusted the finances or whatever they needed to do to be a force in this league and bounce straight back. So great win for them. Lucy Cook in the 50th minute, and just to paint a little picture, the Sheffield FC women goalkeeper Leah Kellogg was player of the match for them. So I guess that kind of paints a bit of a picture into maybe how the game went. Maybe Chesterfield did actually get quite a few attempts, but just couldn't find the back of the net. So yes, they're top of that league, not able to get caught now. And the second game confirmed the bottom of the league. Mansfield Town Ladies 0, SJR Worksop 1. So a great win for SJR Worksop. It was 5th against 6th. But if SJR Worksop had lost that game by 4 goals or more, they would have ended up being relegated due to obviously the goal average. However, they did confirm survival by getting that result that they needed on their final game of the season. It was a substitute, Laura Ferguson, who scored her 7th goal of the season in that game. So I can see the league on the screen. 7th, you've got Anston Albads, played 16, got 15 points. Nottingham Trent University played 16, 9 points, and then Basford United, bottom of the league, 16 games and 6 points. So that's all being confirmed now. There are still a few games still to play, and the one that takes my eye more than most will be Chesterfield against Sheffield FC Women again. So on the 25th of April, which is a bit of an unusual date because I believe that's a Saturday. Maybe it was all teed up to be a great finale. You know, whoever won that game would have won the league. They have to play each other again. So unfortunately, Chesterfield will probably have to give them a bit of a round of applause as they enter the field. But great. Chesterfield put up a great fight, and I believe they got some good links in that area as well. So if they had got promoted, you know, it would have been interesting to see what relationships they would have built and what players they could have brought in across that East Midlands area. But congratulations to Sheffield FC Women. There are 3 cup finals to look forward to as well in this area, in this league. So on the 8th of May, Basford United versus Mansfield Town. That's in the Nottinghamshire FA County Cup. On the 18th of May, Rotherham United versus Sheffield FC Women. That's in the League Cup final at Eagle Valley. And then on the same day, the same stadium, just a little bit before that one, is the plate final, Mansfield Town against SJR Worksop, which is just a repeat of the game that's just happened. So, so plenty still to look forward to in the Cups. But yeah, the league is all done and dusted now.
Certainly is. And I mean,
So-
we talk about SJR Worksop. Just wanted to say they actually lost to Sheffield FC 3-2, which was the other match that they had that they needed to play. And that was the big one because obviously Sheffield being up at the top in the manner that they are, it was going to be very interesting to see how they got on in terms of getting the goals. And it was only by the 1. So this was the thing. That was, I think, Mansfield. I don't think anyone was necessarily expecting them to bop Worksop. But yeah, there was the opportunity for Sheffield to do so. Gareth, were you going to say something there, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wonder how closely Sheffield are paying attention to the championship table, because obviously, depending on relegations and things, there could be lateral movements. So, I suspect that it must be tricky, even if they're pretty confident they'll go into one or the other into the Midlands Premier. It must be really tricky to kind of prepare for a season where you're not potentially sure who your opposition are going to be. Because if Portsmouth do come down and Halifax get that reprieve, I suspect there's going to be some sort of lateral movement to fill out the Division 1 North, and you would suspect that would be either Barnsley Women or Sheffield to be the side that makes that sideways step. So, yeah, it must be really tricky for both of those teams, really, to be able to plan for next season when you've got a really good idea about where you're going to be, but also if Sheffield United find a win from somewhere, that could all change pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's all at the whim of, well, the powers that be in that respect. I don't know where these powers are or where they be, but maybe one day, like the Wizard of Oz, the curtain might get pulled back. And the only other bit of news on this one, John, which I think you'll find quite interesting, we finally managed to get around to following everybody on Twitter, with the exception of Solihull Sporting, couldn't find anything for them. Hull United, couldn't find anything for them, and Ilminster. But Rotherham, have to bring them up because as we clicked the follow, we became their 5,000th follower, which I thought was quite cool. So I love a little round number. So yay for us. We moved them up to 5,000. So you're welcome, Rotherham. You're welcome. Right, London and South East is where we're going to move on to next. And crikey, it's all going on over here. They've had loads of games, literally loads. Dartford, who were hanging on by a thread as it was, have only played the one game and drew with Saltstein. So obviously with Saltstein up near the top as well, that was always going to be an interesting match. But what's even more interesting about both of those teams, Fulham and Saltstein, is that both of them can still make it to the top of the table. Fulham have won their last 3 games, had a lot of games in hand. They beat Haywards Heath 6-0. They've beaten Sutton as well, and just the 11-0 against New Haven. So they've really done their goal difference, the power of good, which is like an additional point there against Dartford. Saltstein, as well as drawing with Dartford, managed to beat Haywards Heath 8-0, who are at the moment just leaking goals for fun, which is a shame for them. Still 4 under par, but that's not a good place to be when it's football and not golf. Dorking managing to beat Ashford and Sutton, and that's why the top 4 have stayed very much as they are. Barking with a little 2-2 draw against Ebbsfleet, which is why Ebbsfleet have moved up. Millwall losing their game. So therefore, did not to Ebbsfleet, which is why Ebbsfleet have jumped above them. The big news down at the bottom, Sport London and Ashford. It's all going on again. So Ashford actually did manage to get out of the relegation zone because they played Sport London and beat them 3-2. However, that was not going to be enough for them because they did then go on to lose a game, and New Haven were beaten by Sport London, who then immediately jumped back above them. But you will notice that Ashford have got more games in hand, and one of those is happening this evening. They will be playing Ebbsfleet United. So Ashford will get 3 bites of the cherry to try and get themselves out of the relegation zone. So let's just have a little look at how that running is going to go, because Fulham have got to play Sport London. And if you're Sport London and you need 3 points desperately, that was not the name out of the hat that you really wanted to draw. But nonetheless, that's the one they've got. Fulham will then also go on to face Ashford and then Dartford in their last game of the season. So it can be very, very, very tricky with Dartford just having that one game left to play on the last game of the season. So those games against Sport London and Ashford, very important as far as Fulham are concerned. Saltstein with lots of games still to go. They are going to be facing Fulham on the 20th of April. That's the weekend. And of course, that's a big one because if Fulham win that, they go top. New Haven will then face Saltstein on the 23rd, and then Barking face Saltstein on the 27th. So Saltstein with a lot of games to play, and they are putting them all in over the course of the next couple of weeks. So we're in an interesting situation where Fulham could go top if they manage to beat Saltstein, but equally, if they don't, and Saltstein manage, or even if they do, Saltstein could manage to get 6 points together and be literally only 3 points behind Fulham with, like I say, just the game against Ebbsfleet to go. So yeah, it could be very, very interesting to see how that goes. You think it would probably be Fulham, but who can say? Who can say? And of course, down at the bottom, as we said, Sport London will need to try and get past Fulham. If they don't, Ashford will need to get past either Millwall or indeed, as we said, Fulham themselves. So both of them need to play Fulham. We're going to assume that both of those games will probably be Fulham wins. So really for Ashford, it all comes down to, can they get a win against Millwall? And it will have to be a win because a draw, not enough. Looking at that goal difference of 17, that they're not going to be putting that back anytime soon, certainly not from a draw. So the win is what they are going to require. Haywards Heath, as we said, they are now officially down. They are the first of my groups to have a team relegated. And Haywards Heath it is, who disappear without a win. 18 losses, just the 1 draw, but not even the 1 point due to the points being deducted. So there's honestly, in this league, so much to go on. And Fulham and Dartford still have to play each other again in the League Cup final on the 27th of April. So there's going to be lots and lots and lots of big matches going on around London and South East. And we are still none the wiser. It could be any one of 3 to go up and any one of 2 to go down. And who's it going to be? We're not going to know probably for about another fortnight. We'll have a much better idea because Saltdean would have played all 3 of their games in hand, really, over Dartford. We'll be down to that last week. So that's the London and South East. We shall see whereabouts we end up with that one. But yes, I'm putting my money on Fulham, I think, on this one to win. Right, back over to you then, Gaz, because the North East Regional looking very interesting because we've got, for the first time in ages, an arrow to take a team to the top of the table. Chester Street Town had a fair few games in hand. Looks like they went on to win them all.
Yes, both Bradford and Chester Street have won all their games in hand so far. This is a really close title race. Frustratingly, it's not going to finish at the same time. But what's interesting is both sides have to play one of the 2 sides scrapping relegation. So Bradford have to play York Railway Institute. Chester Street have to play Hull. Both sides have to play Alnwick Town, starting with Bradford next weekend, I think, travelling up to Alnwick Town, and they play each other as well. So that game on the 4th of May, Chester Street will play Bradford. That game will decide the title because if that's Bradford City's last game of the season, it's Chester Street's penultimate game of the season. So there's lots of kind of permutations on that. If Bradford win that game, they, assuming they beat Alnwick and York Railway Institute, which, you know, don't want to make assumptions, but looking at the table, I think they're fair, if not kind of confident ones. They would be on 52 points, and Chester Street would be on 47 heading into their final game of the season. So that game really is, it's huge. It's a shame it's not the final game of the season. It's a shame that that's not going to be kind of the kind of showpiece to seal everything, because Chester Street afterwards play Alnwick, and that will either be with needing a win to needing a point to go ahead of Bradford, but it's just a shame that's not the last game of the season. Looking down the bottom end of the table, I can't see either Hull or York Railway Institute getting a win in their last games of the season. So yeah, I guess the hope for Hull United is that York Railway Institute can't field a side, but you know, I hope that both of them can do that. Hope that both of them can go and kind of have this final game of the season. It'll be a shame for Hull United to drop down into Tier 6, but I think the writing is on the wall for them. And York Railway Institute, you know, in the grand scheme of things, if you end on -1 points, having received 9 points deducted, you're incredibly lucky to stay in the division. So they will be fortunate to stay up, but it looks like they're going to, and I hope they have a better year next year in terms of availability. We know it's tricky, especially in a league like the Northeast Premier where the travel is so hard. You know, you're going from York to Alnwick, which is up on the border of Scotland almost. It's a long way, and you know, I can understand why availability in that division is low, but hopefully it improves next year.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of said it all there. The other thing that Hull United have to look forward to is, of course, their County Cup match against AFC Preston. But it's, not looking very good at the moment for either of those teams at the bottom, and it will be intriguing to see what it is that keeps either one of them in the league, and indeed if it does keep them in the league, whether or not they remain in the league if they are struggling, as you can see, as much as they have there. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else really that you want to add on anything there, Gareth? I know that you might eventually have to dip before we manage to finish the transmission today. So yeah, anything else you'd want to add?
No, I think that's pretty much everything. I think it's been a super interesting league. I think of the northern leagues, this in the northwest, it's definitely been the most competitive. But what I will say is that it's been it's been really competitive at the top and bottom, and so hopefully that continues next season as well.
No, absolutely. So we are going to flip over to the Southern Premier, where we have our second lot of champions who, to be fair, were crowned a little bit before this week, and that is the mighty Ascot United. Out of the 10 teams, they are the champions. We already knew that Badshot Lee and Chelsea were going down. That was never in doubt. But Ascot United, nonetheless, took Chelsea, played around them a little bit, and then bopped them 7-0. And that was more than enough to win them the title. They then went and did a similar sort of thing to Woodley, but they did at least let them score a goal, beating them 5-1 at Woodley. And that has been enough to ensure that Ascot are almost all the way through the season. They've got one game to go, and that game is against AFC Portchester. And of course, if they can avoid defeat there, it means they would have managed an entirely unbeaten season, which is not easy to do. Ask Gareth. Certainly over there in Wythenshawe, they have done a very similar thing, but it is not easy. So congratulations to Ascot there for managing to take the Southern Premier, and they will be in the WNL next season in the South West Division 1. Lots of other stuff happening around there as well. Wickham found their possibilities floundering as they had an unbelievable 4-4 draw against Winchester City Flyers. Portchester managed a couple of wins. They beat Reading 2-0 and Woodley 2-1. And of course, Oxford also managed to get a draw. That was 3-3 against Winchester City Flyers as well. So a couple of draws there for Winchester. And Reading, even though their season is now over, they did manage to defeat Badshot Lee 6-2, which gave their fans something to shout about. Oxford City might have dropped down. That is because aside from that draw, they didn't play a second game. They were too busy beating Bournemouth Sports Reserves in the Chairman's Cup semi-final. So they've made it into the Chairman's Cup final. So congratulations to them as well. Winchester and Ascot will be competing in the League Cup final on the 27th of April. Oxford will be playing Kidlington in their County Cup final on that day as well. And I suppose really this weekend, we've mentioned Ascot playing Portchester. Oxford will play Wickham and Sholing will be playing Winchester City Flyers. So there are still there's a few interesting games that can be seen in that division. So certainly no reason to divert your eyes entirely away from this league, as there are still some good games to watch. Right, let's nip over to the West Midlands, which is the opposite of the East Midlands, John. In so many ways, there are more teams, and I suppose now appears to be the time to ask you what has happened, because the last time we looked at this, Kidderminster Harriers were sitting at the top, but now Lye Town have made it above them. What has happened? How did they manage to squeak that one?
So in the last few weeks, but last 3 or 4 weeks, Lye Town have played Kidderminster Harriers twice. So honours are shared. So Kidderminster Harriers won the first one, Light Town won the second one. Kidderminster Harriers didn't play last week, Light Town did, hence why Live have now played one game more. And I'll get into that one shortly, because on a personal note, across the Midlands now, it looks like Tier 3 North is pretty much done and dusted. Wolves fans might say otherwise. I don't want to get on anyone's bad side there, but obviously Tier 3 North, it looks like that's pretty much sorted. Tier 4 Midlands looks like it is sorted, whereas this one, it looks like it's going to go right down to the final whistle up the top and towards the bottom as well. So there were 5 games on Sunday, Barry. We knew already that Noel Ladies were going to be the first team already relegated, so they just got the 4 points after 19 games, and they lost 8-0 at home to Sheffield Town. 5 goals from Rebecca Lee Bowen, 2 from Jenna Bodison, and 1 from Maisie May Doherty. And Sheffield now consolidating their 3rd position with a game in hand over the 2nd place and 4th place as well. What Sheffield have done this year is took, I think, many teams by surprise, myself included. You know, it's not a big badge. They haven't signed very well-known players. However, what they have done is created a way of playing to help them win games, and they've done it really, really well. So to be 3rd in this league is a fantastic achievement. Light Town, as we just mentioned, now top of the league, 20 games played, 1 point clear of Kiddie Harriers, who are in 2nd place. But Light have played that extra game. Cyan Johnson, Cyan Dolman, and Brittany Lout, all with a goal there. I was at a couple of the Light games, and they are doing really well. They've got a great fan base there. The reserve team are challenging in their league. The under-18s are challenging in their league. So it looks like Light Town are on the move, and I know that they're already looking at recruitment for next year. Some pretty good players they're looking at, so they're setting the standards high whether they get promoted or not this year. So, you know, good luck to them. They've done a fantastic job there. Outchurch 0, Solihull Sporting 2. So that away win really helped Sporting their chance of survival, because now they're on 14 points after 17 games with 3 games in hand of the team above them. It was a brace from Farquharson to clinch that victory. And Solihull Sporting are just going from strength to strength since the start of the calendar year. Burton Albion 0, Shrewsbury Town 4. So Shrewsbury remain 2 points ahead of Camden Court, who are in 5th place. With goals from Eva Stanley, Vicky Owen, and 2 from Doster. Burton are sitting quite comfortable in 7th place. And then you've got Leek's poor form continuing. So Camden Court 2, Leek Town 0. So Leek have lost something like 3 games on the trot. And that's seen them slip down now to where obviously they are in 10th place. 4 points from safety, but they've played an extra 3 games more than the teams around them. Jess Lundy, I've spoken about on here, and I know Kieran would have mentioned when he's been on here as well. She's added to her big goal scoring tally this season, and Osman got the other one. So just looking ahead with a few fixtures. So towards the top of the league, obviously Light Town on 50 points. They've just got 2 more games to play, both away games, tricky games. You know, Shrewsbury away and Camden Court away. They won't be easy games, but I'm sure, you know, Live got a bit of momentum. They've got a bit of belief, so they'll feel up for getting the maximum points there. Kidderminster Harriers got 4 games to play. One of those is a County Cup game, which is on the 26th of April, and then 3 league games to hopefully get maximum points there for them. Burton away, Sheffield at home, and Knoll last game of the season at home. Towards the bottom of the league, so Outchurch have played all their games, so they're on 19 points. They just have to sit pretty and look at what's going around them now. Cov Sphinx currently 9th, 19 points, but they've still got 5 games left to play. Leek Town in 10th, 2 games left to play on 18 points. And then Solihull Sporting still have 5 games left to play, but need at least 3 or 4 points at least to kind of get them out of trouble there. And the standout game for me there is Solihull Sporting against Cov Sphinx on the 27th of April. So that's obviously a massive game there. And finally, Leek have to play bottom of the league. So at some point, you'd think that Leek will pick up at least 1 point. So even though it looks a bit dangerous, when you look at the fixtures, you know, you would rather be in Leek's position than anybody else's.
You would indeed. And we're just sorry, my mind's been slightly taken away from it because Tom Gary has tweeted whilst we have been live. There's been lots of discourse going on around Hull City ladies at the moment, something that we will probably touch on next week with our guest, Chris Gadsby, who should be joining us next week. And basically, the chairman has submitted a request for the club to be relegated from the third tier that the Guardian has learned amid allegations of mismanagement of the club's finances being made against him by his own players. So haven't had the opportunity to dig into that. But yeah, the Hull City ladies chairman has asked whether or not they can be relegated, which, I mean, when you're asking for relegation, it's not the most ideal of things. They were 14 points clear of Halifax. Halifax looking like they could go down. Stourbridge looking like they could go down. Possibly only one position to go down. It's all a bit of a mess up there in the third tier, especially in the north. So there we go. Just a little thing to add there. So it looks like there's going to be a lot to talk about next week with regards to that one. And obviously, commiserations to Noel in this league who have entered the relegation waiting room, which Hull have just walked into as well. Right. Gareth's going to go in a minute, but he needed to be here, I think, for this bit because 2 weeks ago, he asked my expert opinion as to who is going to win this league out of Royston and Luton. And of course, I said, well, Royston have just done really well. They've beaten us in the County Cup. They just seem to have this will to win. And, well, that will to win is no longer there because they have lost one of their games and drawn the other since that County Cup final, which has turned into a little bit of a nightmare for them, not going to lie. They lost 3-2 to Haringey, which was not the best of starts for them. But then they had a game against Cambridge City. Now, you'll see here Cambridge City sat at the bottom of the table. Everybody in the world would have put most of their worldly belongings on Royston getting a victory here, but Cambridge City were fighting. Royston actually went 2-0 up through Jordan Silito. She scored both of those. They managed to pull one back, 2-1 just before half-time. Then after half-time, they equalised. Lucy Ford then equalised, puts Royston ahead. She was the substitute. And then what we believe to be, I know nobody's given us the time, so I don't know. We know that that the people that scored, but Tyone Smith was the only substitute. So I'm assuming that she was the one who scored a very late goal for 3-3. Royston not very happy. They felt there was a goal that was not given. So for offside, that they obviously thought was onside. But, I mean, I've seen a still photo of it and it looks pretty offside to me, to be fair. But yeah, 3-3 there for Cambridge City. So Gareth, before you go, and before I run too much more into the rest of this, I assume you probably want to roast me mercilessly here.
No. I think it's typical that this is the way it's gone. But I actually just think, yeah, fair play. You nailed your colours to a mast. And it looks like it was the wrong one. But kudos for actually doing it and not sitting on the fence and getting splinters. But yeah, it looks like Luton Town will get their way out. I mean, if they don't, it's a hell of a kind of implosion from them as well. So, yeah, unfortunate. I feel for the team at Royston because to be there or thereabouts all year and then fade away at the last. It's yeah, they've lost it on the back nine, to carry on with your golf puns.
Yeah, well, to carry on with your sitting on the fence one, I fell off the fence very much so, and landed in one with the ball, and it's been chasing me around ever since. So there we go. But anyway, I know that Gareth's got to jump off, so if he does disappear, we thank you for your time. It's been much appreciated.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, gents, and I'll catch you next week.
Indeed, looking forward to it. And we will just tidy up this Eastern Region premiere because apart from the drama that's been happening at the top with Royston, Luton have won both of the games that they have played over the course of the fortnight, defeating Wroxham for the second time in a row, this time 4-0, not as tight as the previous game, and then defeating Enfield 5-1. So 2 away victories for Luton, and it's put them 2 points behind Royston. And it's massive because tonight they are facing St Albans at this very moment. They will be, if not kicked off, getting ready to kick off. And St Albans, a tricky little side, a side that have caused Stevenage a little bit of a drama as well. Stevenage managing to beat Dissendale and Hellersden 2-0. But this weekend, just gone, Stevenage faced St Albans and drew 2-2. They were 2-0 down, managed to put it back 2-2 in the second half. But now that Royston have lost and drawn, you do just have that little moment where you think that could have been 39 points with 2 games left to go. It could have been a much tighter situation when you consider the games that are to come up, because Stevenage's next 2 games are Luton Town at the weekend, and then the weekend after that they face Royston Town. So 2 massive matches that Stevenage are going to have a say in as to where this title goes, but it does not look now like there is much of a chance for Stevenage unless Royston and Luton absolutely drop it. But this is, for me, John, a really, really interesting league, because I was going through the games, writing down the important ones, and literally every game was important in one way or another. So all these teams, even in the middle, that have still got games to play, whether it be they're playing top teams, whether they're playing bottom teams, literally every game at the moment means something. It might not in a few weeks' time when a few more results have fallen down around them, but certainly at this point, every game and every point is going to be huge. So we'll just run through a couple of those games because, as you can see down at the bottom, that draw for Cambridge City was amazing, but Needham Market managed to defeat Watford Ladies Development 1-0, and that was huge for them, because that means that they have taken back that spot in 11th and are now only a point behind Bowers and Pitsea, only 2 points behind Watford Ladies Development. So relegation, very much any 2 of those 4 at the moment. So it's a really exciting league to still be a part of. And Enfield will play Bowers on Sunday, which is a huge game for Bowers. They need to try and get away from Needham Market. As I mentioned, Stevenage will face Luton, and Wroxham will be facing Needham Market. So Cambridge City not playing, but that's because they've only got 2 games left to go. So Bowers and Needham both getting their game in hand. And my goodness, anything could happen there. And any side could be in the bottom 2 come the end of that day. And on the 23rd, Luton are away to Watford Ladies Development. And as we've just seen with Cambridge City, you simply can't take it for granted that that is going to be a Luton win, especially with Watford Ladies so desperate to try and get away from that chasing pack. The following weekend, the 27th, Luton then have to play Bowers. This is what I mean. Huge games. Royston plays Stevenage, as I said. St Albans are then up against Cambridge City, and Watford Ladies Development have got Wroxham. So huge games all the way around there. And then on that Tuesday, the 29th, Stevenage host Haringey and St Albans host Luton. So just in the 2 weeks until we're back on air with this again, absolutely mad and major stuff. Stevenage have still got to play Luton in the League Cup final as well on the 11th of May. But genuinely just so many other games even after that. Cambridge City, they've got to go and play Stevenage. Luton have got to play Needham Market. Royston have to play Wroxham. Watford have to play Enfield. Bowers and Pitsea have to play Haringey. Royston then have to play Enfield, and Needham Market will finish the season up against Stevenage. So, as I say, you look at every single one of those matches, there's not one where you wouldn't say the points are vital as it stands. And honestly, when you start looking at league tables, John, I mean, that one, it didn't necessarily start in a position where it felt like it was going to be the most exciting ones to finish. It looked as though Royston were going to walk away with it. Cambridge looked dead and buried, but they're obviously managed by Lazarus because they are, well, they're back. They're walking among us. The question is, will they be the walking dead, or will they very much be fully resurrected? And we are yet to see that. But my goodness, so much going on in the lower leagues, John. It's amazing. I can't believe there's not more people that aren't getting themselves into some of these stories that's going on around local football, because just everywhere you look, there's drama, there's intrigue, there's controversy, there's everything you could possibly want.
I think, like we said before, following all these leagues the way that we have, you can see a story each week, whether it be in the league that you're used to following or a league just up and down the country. And but just touching on your league, I think momentum goes a long way, doesn't it? And a bit of positivity. So yes, you might be up against a team that's maybe 3 or 4 positions higher than you, but if they aren't going to get promoted, or if they aren't going to get relegated, and you've got all this momentum and you've got this belief, all of a sudden, what's happened 6 months ago or 6 weeks ago, when they've got points and you haven't, that doesn't count for anything about what's going to happen in the future. So, I wouldn't mind having that bit of momentum. So if you are needing market, or if you've a team that's got maybe 4 points out of the last 3 or 4 games, all of a sudden, you have got a bit of an opportunity there just to build on something. We've seen it at Halifax, bottom of tier 3. They only had 1 point all season. All of a sudden, they won one game, and then they won the following game as well. All of a sudden they went from 1 point to 7 points. Momentum does go a long way. So, you can almost disregard anything that's happened in the past. If you're selling with a shout and you've got a point on the board, or just some bit of good news in the camp, you can really push. Use that to push forward, can't you?
You absolutely can. There's so much that's going on, as we say, and huge things happening. And as we say here on Awful Wins Football, this is what we're here for. All of the stories. There's loads happening in the Scottish Premier League. They are having a full raft of matches today, a full round of them, which I will incidentally be going off to go and have a little watch. Glasgow City and Rangers are going to be playing, so I'm very much going to get onto that. I've got Barcelona, they're on at the minute as well. Liga F is really going strong at the moment, as Barcelona are 4-1 up there against Sevilla. And of course, the breaking news that has happened today, as we've mentioned, is that Hull City Ladies chairman has asked for the club to be relegated, and the quotes that has been put here is to try to punish players. So yeah, multiple club sources have alleged that Rod Johnson's relegation submission is an attempt at retaliation after several squad members criticised him in public social media posts over the last 72 hours, with players expressing fears their team might not exist in a few weeks. It's every year there seems to be a club somewhere within the lower reaches that seems to have a massive drama. And this seems to be the one, doesn't it, this year?
Yeah, and obviously people will take more note of this because it's tier 3, but I'm not going to name them now because it's all in the past. But we had one last year in tier 4. Well, we had 2 last year in tier 4. We had one in January, which changed the whole coaching team, and then we had another one, a well-known name within lower league football, men's and women's, that happened last year as well. So it does happen, but obviously with this being tier 3, and the way it's come out, and I haven't read the article yet because obviously I'm here chatting to you. It's going to be very, very interesting, especially if Portsmouth are the team to get relegated into tier 3. Does that mean 2 teams will will be reprieved? If Hull are going down, then does that mean 11th and 12th place will remain in the league next year? So loads of things to consider, and I can't wait to continue this conversation off air shortly.
It's really interesting. I mean, important to point out, Hull City Ladies are obviously not affiliated with the men's championship team, Hull City, so they are not a part of Hull City. Again, it would be really nice if this was made clearer in the naming of clubs so that people don't make these sort of mistakes. But yeah, the general gist of it seems to be that they think there's a black hole of about £200,000 that's unaccounted for in the club's accounts over the last 5 seasons. Other club personnel report allegations of misconduct to the FA, who are, of course, understood to be working with a club to try and work that out. It's not a good look. Not a good look at all. And of course, 8 of the team's players are said to have sustained serious knee injuries in the last 18 months. And Hope Knight, one of the players who has tweeted out about everything, has said that this is obviously not a coincidence. It's what happens when footballers are treated like an afterthought. So huge things going on there. I reckon that is going to be a huge talking point when it comes to next week's lower league lingo, when we are, as I say, hopefully going to have Chris Gadsby joining us. It'd be amazing. If you've never seen Chris Gadsby before, he does basically all the stuff that we're doing, but specifically for the WNL. So he's there week in, week out, talking about how the WNL are getting on. Very much looking forward to having him on the channel. I believe he also does a little bit of commentary with you as some sort of purgatory that he's got to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. So you might have seen some of his shows quite recently where he's opened up with the Switch Sport slogan. So yeah, he's mingled with us at Switch Sport. So we provide him interviews. He had one just the other day with Sporting Council manager Andy Mulligan. So that was an interview that I did with Andy Mulligan. And now he's put that on his YouTube show, which also goes his whole YouTube show goes on Switch Sport on a Saturday night. So yeah, lots of mingling and putting on different platforms, which is great for Switch Sport, but also great for Chris as well.
Absolutely. So there we go. So come and see us next week when we will have Lower League Lingo, episode 32. We'll be looking mostly at the WNL. Who's going up? Who's going down? What could possibly be the permutations? Have the FA got involved? Is Tom Gary tweeting more about what's happening? Will it be Hull? Will it be Halifax? Will it be Stourbridge? Who knows what's going to happen? We probably won't know the answer next week, but we'll have a jolly good time talking about it. Thanks, everyone. Once again, congratulations, as we said before, to Ascot and to Sheffield FC. And we'll see you all next week.